Here we go. This is the Steelers Squad Show on the Locked On Steelers Podcast Network. I'm your host, Tyler Feldman. Rich Eisen hosted SportsCenter earlier this week, which begs the question, is the world finally healing?
And I'm Wayne Gandy, former Steeler offensive lineman. Steeler Nation can breathe finally. Cam Hayward is in camp, but is it going to matter? Because is he playing tomorrow? That and much more here on the Steelers Locked On Show.
Wave those terrible towels. It's the Steelers Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Pittsburgh Steelers every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Steel City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From the steel curtain to the next generation, the Steelers Squad Show starts now.
That's right. Here we go. This is the Steelers Squad Show right here on the Locked On Steelers Podcast Network. Tonight's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is right around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets right now. Tyler Feldman, former Steelers offensive tackle, Wayne Gandy. This is the Steelers Squad Show on the Locked On Steelers Podcast Network. A reminder to join us every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central for our live preview show that's happening right now. And then this week, you'll get to join us tomorrow. That's Thursday, immediately after the Steelers' final preseason game against the Carolina Panthers. Wayne, with that in mind, short week for the Steelers. You said it in the intro. Cam Hayward, does it matter that the hold-in is now officially over? Because Mike Tomlin, we heard it here this week, does not expect to play any of those veteran starters, TJ Watt, DK Metcalf, Cam Hayward, Aaron Rodgers, just to name a few.
And I know I was questioning whether this hold in was just a big strategy to really just get rid of all preseason game and action and practice. You're talking about a Hall of Famer that's in his 15th year. You never know these tricks of the trades. I'm quite sure, as we have discussed, some of it was about being able to get more market value. But Cam Hayward being on the field, for me, not a big question. I went on the record of saying after September 1st, sure, I would start panicking. But until then, with a veteran like him after last year and what he was able to put together and being probably the key to where this defense wants to go, let him rest. Keep him in the garage. Don't even let him travel to the preseason game. Just leave him in Pittsburgh and let the cards fall where they may.
And Wayne, we didn't have a chance to have a post-game show after the Bucs game, and we do apologize to all of you viewers that were hoping for that. We had some missing pieces, mainly me. It was my fault. It was my fault. I was out of town. So what were your thoughts just very quickly on that Bucs game, and how does that play into this final preseason preparation week for the Steelers?
Well, the one thing I saw was a lively defensive front, especially early on. We questioned the physicality. I love the way that Harmon and that defensive line was getting off the ball. We saw some edge pressure. We're trying to figure out who is going to be that key third outside linebacker behind Highsmith and Watt. We saw secondary moving around. What we didn't get to see, because they only played about 10 snaps, was that first offensive line and them to be able to set the tone. But there's big questions, in this with this offensive line, not just the starters, but these games are really helping with the depth. As much as we want to see those five guys up front, as we know, a couple of them already working through injury, it's been key to get that. But I sure tuned in that first quarter thinking I was going to get a strong running game going. And by the time I switched out my Yeti cup, they were on the sideline.
Yeah, Wayne, I'm glad you brought that up, because we'll call this sit or start, because it seems like in this modern era, or this current era of the NFL, the preseason doesn't really matter as much for the guys who are going to be playing pretty much every snap on both defense and offense. Mike Tomlin, like we said at the start of the show, he has chosen to rest key starters. Aaron Rodgers, we won't see him tomorrow. DK Metcalf, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt. We aren't going to be seeing those guys play against the Panthers at all. From your perspective, from the era of football that you played, what do you make of this current state where the preseason games don't really mean as much for the starters?
Well, I've only been retired 15 years, and I must tell you, that's a new thing. Those last couple of years, even as a veteran, you were still expected to go out. That first preseason game, you would be on a snap count. You know, coach would walk in there, tell you you was going to play 8-10 snaps. But that second and third game back then, when we had 4 preseason games, you could expect a half or maybe come out of the second into the second half in that third game. Now, what's so interesting in today's preseason is philosophies, because if you watch the Chiefs, they have no problem putting Patrick Mahomes on the field and let him move around for a quarter and a half. But other teams do take the same approach that the Steelers are taking. And the most interesting and hardest part to weigh preseason games, trust me, as a player, they were something, it was a necessary evil. They did not have life or death on it for most of your starters. This was more of your backups. But the interesting part with the Steelers is a guy like DK Metcalf that has not been part of the organization. Usually these passes are given out to guys like a Cam Hayward or a Watt or even someone that has been around on the team in the system. A new face like a DK Metcalf or Jalen Ramsey, and I know some of those guys will get in there. They would at least get out to start seeing some live, full speed action in a system that they hadn't been in with the Steelers. Now, sometimes you transfer with your offensive coordinator or the head coach used to be somewhere and you piggyback with him, so you're familiar. But when you're in a completely different system, and the only person you really can say you can't really try to stick out there is Aaron Rodgers. I mean, once you hit 40, every snap is valuable, you know, so we don't want to waste him. But I would like to see, I was thinking that anyone that was physically capable, that was new to the offense or defense, was going to get some reps tomorrow night.
We have one listener on YouTube asking, so you think it's smart to keep Rodgers from playing the final preseason game? That's what I'm gathering from you, Wayne, because part of what you were saying, if you take the age away from it, for Aaron Rodgers, new system, new team, new receivers, to me, it makes sense. Hey, maybe one drive, 10 snaps, something. But what do you think Mike Tomlin's message is by saying, no, we don't need to throw Aaron Rodgers out there?
I think that he really feels like maybe in camp and for what he's seen in Aaron Rodgers, he's feel very comfortably going into that first game against the Jets with the Hall of Famer underneath center. I think that's what makes him the head coach. He gets to make that choice of what he has seen, and there's a certain level of confidence that he has in Aaron Rodgers of picking up this system. And I think it speaks, you know, it's one of those things. What were you going to do with him out there anyway? Was it just going to be, I'm going to hand the ball off in that first drive? And if that's all you're going to do, then I didn't need you to run out the tunnel. If all you were going to do is 8 snaps and 6 of them runs and a screen, then I didn't need to. That's just a fan wanting to see Aaron Rodgers on the field. Now, if you're going to actually go out there, but if he's playing, then everybody's on deck. So if you're making a decision that DK Metcalf isn't playing or another starter isn't playing, we all know if the starting quarterback is on the field, then we have to be out on the field. So I think it's just Mike Tomlin rolling the dice and hoping that the guys that he has brought in will be ready in two weeks.
It's also a preseason game. It is on the road in Charlotte, in the Queen City, but it is against the Carolina Panthers. So from that perspective, to your point, Wayne, throwing Aaron Rodgers out there for one drive against a team like the Panthers in the preseason, yeah, maybe it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I understand from the fans' perspective that you'd like to see a new quarterback in a new system under center, at least to get some reps. Walk us through the difference in your eyes from training camp and practice, going head-to-head with those guys on your team, and what you get in a preseason game.
You have no real control in practice, whether it's training camp or the season. You have a control of the tempo. There is no situation where you throw an interception, you run 40 yards, and then they call the interception back, and you dispersed all this energy. Now you're winded. You're at the mercy of how you're playing. It could be a quick strike. It could be a long drive. You're not really, it puts you in the mindset that you're not in control. It tests your win, your execution, dealing with the noise, all kind of things based on how new. I always, in my career, I played for 4 different teams. And unfortunately, I always knew that in those first preseason games, when I first got there, they were a luxury because I did have to learn the quarterback's cadence. I did have to be able to build a language with the guard and the tight end of being able to execute plays without always having to verbalize them. As much as you can cough and just nod at each other and execute the play is what you want. And that familiarity is something that has to grow with a certain group. But I think the preseason for what me and you grew up on, what I used to play in, is not coming back in this new world. Everybody, is making bigger money. And the worst thing to try to tell a fan is your $50 million quarterback is slowed. He doesn't even have to necessarily miss the season. But anything that hampers him being what they think he's going to be on game one is just something that organization seems to be on put in their back pocket for something they're not going to do anymore.
If you're just joining us, Wayne Gandy making several excellent points as to why it's probably smart of Mike Tomlin to not play Aaron Rodgers in the Steelers' final preseason game tomorrow night in Charlotte. Wayne, the comment section is popping off on this Aaron Rodgers sitter start in the final preseason game. One fan saying, I understand he's accomplished and deserves the right to do that, but we all saw how Rodgers had little to no chemistry with his receivers last season. It's imperative everyone gets their chemistry. So from a chemistry perspective, you have to think that Aaron Rodgers, and he's not just a great quarterback, but it's his mind that has made him so great over the years and a Hall of Fame quarterback. I'm sure he's creating that chemistry, even if it's not in a game situation, a preseason game, albeit. Don't you think?
I definitely believe so. And I think that's where the offensive coordinator and the head coach come into play to make sure that's happening during practice. And hey, I'm with some of you as far as the building the chemistry, but it's all a science project, and there is no one size fits all. There's 32 teams. There's 32 different philosophies because people are in different points of where they are. You look over just down the road to our sworn enemy in Cleveland, the carousel they have going on of trying to figure out, and now it's Joe Flacco being the man after all this time, and he's not been in the preseason game. So with Aaron Rodgers building chemistry, that is so key. And that's what I'm trying to convey a little more of. But what were you going to do in the game? Were you really running those plays? And now teams are so fearful of showing anything. It's just, the first and second routes and route trees. It's not complicated for what you're trying to execute. And you can go to a practice and see that they're doing more. They really tried to hide what they're trying to do. So, yes, once we hit game one with our Steelers, we're going to be looking and struggling at a pace in those first couple of games that we're going to have to deal with and hopefully you come out with wins. But there is a curve of chemistry that will have to be gained.
Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf sitting side by side on Cam Hayward's podcast earlier this week. It seems like the chemistry is there, at least on camera, kind of like what Wayne and I have and even have with Chris Carter when he joins us here on the Squad Show. Chris Carter, his Locked On Steelers podcast, airing weekly and daily, on the Locked On Steelers podcast network. He's not able to join us tonight. Wayne and I holding down the fort. So Rodgers, Watt, Hayward, DK, all not expected to play in Thursday night's preseason finale in Charlotte. So the focus shifts to the defense, where newly acquired cornerbacks Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay are set to make their preseason debuts together. What should we expect from that secondary? That's next right here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. But first, have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game or a football game with friends and family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch or kickoff, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On Steelers, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming NFL game. Tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deal? Gametime's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Seat views right in the app before you buy, so you know exactly where you'll be. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, back here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. Wayne Gandy, Tyler Feldman joining you here on this beautiful Wednesday evening. Wayne, situated in Atlanta. I'm in Austin, Texas. Wayne, former Steeler. I grew up in Pittsburgh. How about that? We're talking Steelers on a Wednesday night. It's beautiful. It's great to have you, Wayne, joining us on the show this season. Steelers, Panthers, 7 Eastern on the NFL Network. That is the final preseason game for Pittsburgh. And I'd like to call this on secondary thought. New look defense. Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, set to make their preseason debuts together. Not sure how much they'll play, how many drives or plays they'll actually participate in, Wayne. But what do you make of those guys in that secondary? It seems like that specific position group is going to be a huge factor for the Steelers defense this upcoming season.
It's part of the team that I think is most anticipated. Imagining guys like Slay and Ramsey, what we've seen in the growth in Joey Porter Jr. and even Juan Thornhill, those guys back there. We've seen in the preseason guys that can cover, guys that are energetic, and now you're going to put the big dogs in. And I was wondering, would this triplet set of corners, I'm interested in who's going to be the nickel, who's going to really, we know what Ramsey and Slay have been able to do throughout their careers, but they are moving into a new defense. And I'm excited to see this secondary. And I think that's why people feel like this could be one of the memorable Steeler defenses. Usually we know that front seven and what they can dictate, but to imagine that you have the kind of play that we expect out of this secondary, along with those guys up front, you start thinking that you have a top 3 or 4 defense by the end of the season.
And truthfully, I don't think anyone's arguing with this, but the Steelers defense has to be top 5 if they want any chance of making it deep into the playoffs. I don't see them as a Super Bowl caliber team. I could be wrong. But I feel like the pressure is on the defense to perform week in and week out, Wayne, because right now with the Steelers offense, we just don't know. They could be spectacular. Maybe Aaron Rodgers, comeback player of the year, possibly. Maybe he does something that we're not expecting, 40 plus. But for me, you're leaning on a guy like Jalen Ramsey and that veteran leadership, bringing that chaos to the secondary to strike fear into opponents, because I'm not sure the offense will be striking any fear into opponents on a weekly basis.
And that's just Steeler football. From the time I've ever known this team, that is their process. Their process is that regardless of how the offense, we feel like we're going to give up 14, 17 points to you, and we can figure it out. Even a bad offense can figure out how to get you 21 points. That's really how the Steelers, that's how it was when my 4 years there, when I played. It was one of those things where teams knew defensively they were going to be dominated. They expected that somebody from somewhere was going to have there was going to be a running back. Didn't matter who it was, because the offensive line is going to be so solid that they're going to run the ball, they're going to shorten the game, and the Steelers are going to win 21-17, 17-16. So defense having all the pressure, to me, that is Steelers football. That's what carries you early in the season, where you can gamble without having to play someone like an Aaron Rodgers. You're going to rely, and you're right, the defense, and most of the times when the Steelers have been deep into the playoffs or into the Super Bowl, it's been because of the defense. It's one of those, and Tyler, I'm going to share a little with you that there was times you'd be sitting in the locker room before a big game that the defense would just come over and say, give us 2 touchdowns. We'll take care of the rest. And it was really chilling for you to walk out on a field and these guys are looking you dead in the eye, like, just get me 2 touchdowns. And we will do the rest. And that's Steeler football. We'll set you up for the field goal. But guys like Jason Gilden, Levon Kirkland, Joey Porter, they would come over to you. And, Casey Hamp, they would come tell you, and that was emboldening. It made the offense like, so all you need is 14 points? Oh, we can do that. We can do that. If that's all you need is 2 touchdowns, we can do that today. And that's just Steeler football. So I'm putting all the pressure on this defense to be a top 3 or 4 defense and buy this offense some time. And as I said, I think both of us agreed we're not necessarily seeing a Super Bowl champion team, but we do see a team that if they find themselves in that situation with the veterans they have, they will take and capitalize on it.
Jim Nantz, hello friends, said last week or over the weekend, I read it somewhere, I think it's going to work out. He was talking about Aaron Rodgers with the Steelers. I'm going against the popular viewpoint of what happened with the Jets. It was better than people gave him credit for by a lot. So Jim Nantz, he watches a lot of football. We have one person asking, do you believe the Steeler team can score enough points, 2 touchdowns, Wayne? Is that enough points with this potentially great defense to win 10, 11 football games during the regular season? Do you believe that to be the case?
I believe that easily. I think that we're not really valuing that. This offensive line is young, but they've been there together. They know each other's phone numbers. When you look at the tight end position offensively, you get excited about that case with Hayward and Washington. The biggest unknown is who's going to balance the field in the wide receiving core. You really feel like DK Metcalf is going to create this idea that the opposing safety is going to have to keep his eyes on him. He's not a guy that you want to let go in one-on-one situations, and you got to take the advantage of it. And when you get a veteran, older quarterback, I don't care whether it was Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, all those guys, you bring them in just for those 2 or 3 plays down the road. You're not looking for 400-yard days. You're looking for more efficiency. You're really looking for 17 out of 22 or, those kind of numbers, efficient play, 2 touchdowns, a key third down that they pick up just because of their maturity and their excellence. I don't know of a quarterback that any team has gotten this late that had these expectations that it was going to be fun and gun. This is typically that they're just trying to execute. They feel like they have a dominant defense and Steeler way football, the way I believe that the Steelers have always been built to win.
That Steelers defense, to your point, Wayne, has always been the identity of Pittsburgh football. I do wonder about the identity of this Steelers team, though. You're leaning on the defense, and I like the look of this defense. I like talking about what the Steelers defense could be this season, but you look at the Steelers division, and it's been this way the last handful of years. You've got some high quality, a couple of the best quarterbacks in the league in Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. So, outside of the Cleveland Browns, how do you compete in that division when you're leaning on your defense against arguably 2 of the best offenses in the league? How does that make sense to you?
Well, you build a defense, you go out and get Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, so they can try to slow down that Bengals offense. You get TJ Watt under contract so he can run Lamar Jackson down. And you're talking about a division where the Steelers, it's just a personal thing to me. It doesn't really matter about the Bengals. It didn't really matter about the Browns. We didn't even really care who was in the uniform. It's the Bengals and the Browns, and we're going to go win the game. Now, when it got to the Ravens, it became one of those things, we got to figure this out. But, it was never one of those uphill battles where the Steelers looked at their division, and regardless of who is in the lineup, I think, to me, what has gotten away from what the Steelers are is that the Steelers thrived on the no name. They thrived on the stars. You have a guy like James Harrison. Who was he? It was that kind of. No, I'm talking about when they got him.
Yeah.
When I'm talking about those ideas that when I got him, didn't know he barely was on the team. I was there with him.
Yes.
But you put him in a Steeler uniform, and it's a different mentality. You feel you play for the city. You rally. I think that's what's going to help Aaron Rodgers. He's back into that cocoon where you understand and you feel the city is depending on you. And all that pulls out. I mean, Pittsburgh is a special place to play football. It feels you throw the idea, you feel like you have to win for the team, for the organization, for the fans. It's a more passion. I think that's what we got to pour back. Somewhere along the line in the last 10, 12 years, Steeler fans started looking for names.
Well, that was when Antonio
who's in the uniform.
I could tell you when that tipping point for me was. That inflection point was when Antonio Brown did a Facebook Live in the locker room. I feel like that was the convert. Maybe that's where I feel like things maybe separated a little bit, because I still can't believe Ben, Brown, and Bell, they never won a Super Bowl together. But hey, to your point, Wayne, James Harrison maybe came in as a nobody or an unknown. People know who James Harrison is now.
And left a legend.
Yeah. And for that, I'm thankful. For that, I'm thankful. That's how I feel. James Harrison, one of the greatest plays in Super Bowl history, unforgettable. Tons of great points by Wayne Gandy on the show tonight. Guys on fire. We need this kind of point taking during the regular season for the Steelers, because there's a lot of question marks. And that's why, as we talk tonight and preview the Panthers' final preseason game tomorrow, I'd like to see more of these guys. And I'm excited to. It just seems like in the preseason format, in the way in which the game's being played now, it just feels different and not as physical in the preseason environment. These guys are making so much money. Hey, we still got 30 more minutes on this show to get to. Coming up next, one man's worst day is another's opportunity. Who will seize the spotlight in Carolina? That's next here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. But first, August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on the MVP race, crown your champion in August, or parlay your division winner, dark horses. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets right now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Back here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show, Wayne Gandy, Tyler Feldman, Chris Carter. We're giving him the night off. He needs some rest. He's been busy. He's been busy. He's been busy. If you're just joining us, this is the Locked On Steelers Squad Show on the Locked On Steelers Podcast Network. We are live with a preview every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. And then we will be live after every single Steelers game during the regular season. Whenever that game gets played, we'll be on right after on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. All right, Wayne, rising stars, roster drama, a lot of stuff happening this time of the year when it comes to tough cuts, key additions. Rock Taylor was one of those preseason favorites. He was playing well in those preseason games, but he got cut. What do you make of guys like Rock Taylor, or guys that get added to the roster to fill out certain roles? It's a tough time of the year for certain guys who are busting their tails during camp, during the offseason, to try to make a 53-man roster and then find out, well, there's no room for you here on this team. Have you had any experiences in your career where you saw guys who really put in that work and maybe it didn't work out for them in that moment?
Definitely, it becomes one of those things that, especially when you're in camp, there's a different type of interaction that happens with a team. And for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, you forget that at some point there's going to come a cut. You really, it kind of escapes you that, no, this is not the actual team. This is a melting pot of people, that half of these people are going to be gone in another 10 days. And usually, and now we see that teams, when they go to camp and they come out, by now, there's just one or two battles that are left as far as positions. The way contracts are constructed, drafts are now less people in camp. You have a little more idea of who's going to be around, but tomorrow is still key for a lot of people, and I especially see that in the Steelers receiving core.
Chris Boswell, he returned to practice this week. Cam Hayward returned to practice this week. Like I said, Rock Taylor sadly getting cut. Some other key departures, but a lot of long snappers coming into the room. Different additions where, who knows what Mike Tomlin's thinking and what his needs are as he wraps up this offseason before the season kicks off. Wayne, do you have any memories this time of the year, those jitters where you're kind of in this, last preseason game, season's right here. At this time of the year, what were you doing as a player to really finalize your preparation?
I was happy that the last preseason game was here. It was 4 in those times, which, has changed over the last couple of years. You knew you were not going to play. This was the game that out of the 4, you were not going to play. And the Monday after this game, you had to go to the next level. Whatever you was holding back no longer could be held back. You're never in the preseason. You're working on things from the offseason as far as techniques, things like that. Even though it's games, you're still out there working things, just like the team as an individual, just as you are as a unit. But you knew once this game was over, the real chaos was going to start. That the next time you heard the national anthem, it was going to be time to play. It was exciting. You started, thinking about the opponent who you had, that 2 weeks of sitting around thinking about that same guy, watching film. But this game here, it's all about where you are with the organization. Are you a starter? Are you backup? Are you set? There's going to be a couple of guys out there that's going to be going 150%. You just have to hope they're not playing over you today, because I don't, you're really just trying to get through this game without sustaining any kind of injury that will make going in that first game an issue.
One of the issues that I feel like is still a big question mark for the Steelers team is that wide receiver number 2. You've got DK Metcalf, but who's that guy? Who is going to be that other guy? Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson. It doesn't seem like there's that staple of a wide receiver 2 on this team. You're limiting Aaron Rodgers' options, right? Or is he good enough to run an offense where you can kill a ton of time, have these long drives, and manage the clock in a way where maybe that's how they do it, as opposed to having all these threats on the outside or over the middle?
And we saw a very efficient receiving core: Scotty Miller, Brandon Johnson, Roman Wilson, in these first 2 preseason games. Especially in that first one, we talked about how they were catching the ball, they were making the catch, running the routes. When you looked at the second game, that same kind of energy, big catches for touchdowns. But you are so right, Tyler. I think this is just something you have to put a pin in and we will see as the season goes on. But right now, and I don't think you're going to find that tomorrow night either, of who you're going to really feel. You feel like maybe Robert Woods is your third guy, that veteran. But really, who is number 2? You thought Austin was going to be the guy. He's been banged up through camp. But you're really going to need that second receiver to keep the field balanced. Everything has to go right for this offense. You really feel like that. It has to go right. Health has to go right. And players have to go out and shine. It can't beat itself. It has to take advantage of a good field position. And some of that is why you go get veterans like DK Metcalf, Aaron Rodgers, and those guys, Mason Rudolph. That's the kind of offense you're going to have. It has to be one of those. And we've seen it in the Steelers, where the offense is just efficient. It takes advantage. When the defense gets the interception or the fumble and set them up at the 40, they take advantage of it. It's going to have to be one of those offensive, especially early on.
It seems like the preseason has always been the appetizer to the main course, which is the regular season. But much like a lot of the food industry in America today, prices go up, serving size gets smaller. And it seems like with the preseason and how we've talked about it tonight, does it make sense for the NFL still to have these preseason games? I could see a world where the NFL, I read an article the other day, they're talking about having the Super Bowl in London. London really wants the Super Bowl, and the NFL wants to be this global entity. So you're adding all this additional travel, you're adding more games. Do you see a world in the near future where maybe the preseason, hey, let's say maybe they play one preseason game and a couple joint practices, as opposed to this strung out few weeks of a few preseason games where your starters aren't even really playing? That's been on my mind, so I wanted to just present it to the floor, Wayne.
Well, similar to how they got rid of the 4th game, I really can see in the near future it just being 2 preseason games. I really can see you have to have anything you're doing where you take a break and come back. You're going to have 1 or 2 games just from a logistic, learning to fly, everybody packing this. You just want almost like a dress rehearsal. So you have one at home, of how things would have went, where will you park, and all those kind of things. And then you do one on the road. I can really just see it being that way. I think that's why we even have heard whispers of the owners trying to make it almost an 18-game season, because it would just end up being you have one home game preseason, one away, just to get a little dress rehearsal, and then some team practices, and then get to the playing football. That's just where we are. It's each and every year you see more and more games out of the country, to where you build up to where in a minute is somebody every week. It'll stop being just 2 or 3. It'll end up being 5 and 6, and then 9, and then it'll just be somebody is playing somewhere outside of the United States a football game every week. That's how the NFL. That's how they're moving. They have become the biggest sport in America, making these kinds of moves. The fans still seem to be enjoying it and loving it. And all you got to hope that with the players, it becomes, a mental thing where they can handle all the changes.
You always have to look at the money. The NFL at the end of the day is a business, and the moves that they make, whether that's ending the preseason altogether or keeping a couple preseason games, it's all about that green paper, which is now pretty much all digital now, it seems like. Hey, Wayne, you mentioned the offensive line at the start of the show. Caleb Johnson, what have we seen from the running backs? Jalen Warren, not a ton. Could we be seeing more from them? What about the offensive line? Have you been able to see enough in this preseason action to actually properly evaluate the current state of what and who will be protecting Aaron Rodgers come the regular season?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen a large enough sample size. And I think, as you said earlier, one of our online listeners is questioning the timing, and that's that little curve where you're going to have to even let the line, as much as they've done it in practice. Aaron Rodgers is a different, especially for these guys up front. Remember last year, even though Russell Wilson was in that 35, 36-year-old range, he still had decent mobility. Justin Fields could get you out of trouble. Now you're going to have to go out. You're going to have to protect the guy that you're going to have to sustain the block. Everything is going to have to be a strain for that extra second, because there's not going to be a lot of ducking and spinning out of sacks and running to the edge of the defense. It's going to be where pass protection is a must. It's for us to have any success. And I haven't seen enough in the preseason from this offensive line. They haven't even played. I don't know if you add up all the time together. Have they played a half in the first 2 games? I don't know if they've played enough snaps to even add up to a half of football. So, and then you add on that pressure of not understanding that even with Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson, both of those guys have some mobility. Aaron Rodgers is not, he's not going to help you out of the sack. And you're going to have to learn to protect, pick up the blitz and things like that.
It is Aaron Rodgers' team right now. I'm curious to see what kind of packages that the Steelers may implement, possibly, who knows, with the more mobile quarterback. We'll talk about that next, and we'll also preview this final preseason game between the Panthers and Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast network. Back here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show, Wayne Gandy, Tyler Feldman. If you are still with us on this Wednesday night, we are so glad to have you live on YouTube. And then the audio of tonight's show will be posted soon after the show finishes at the top of the hour on Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, you can search Locked On Steelers Squad Show and find us there. Wayne, 7 Eastern in the Queen City, the Steelers will try to be the king against the Carolina Panthers. Don't really expect much from this game. We've talked about that ad nauseum throughout this show tonight. Possibly, we had one person comment that it could be some wet weather in Charlotte tomorrow night. That could also impact things at Bank of America Stadium in Uptown Charlotte. Wayne, what do you want to see from this game? You could go broad here. You could go more specific. But if you could expect anything or hope to see anything or gain anything from this third and final preseason game, what would you like to see? Take us into Wayne's world.
Well, the two areas that I'm looking in this game, I don't know if they're going to get tested, as me and you have talked about so far this year. It's always based on what the other team does. They could come out looking to improve, running schemes, playing their starters. They could come out in the same mindset of just have a running clock, just let it run out and get off the field. But I'm excited for hearing that Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, Joey Porter may get in the mix. Like to see them get tested just a little bit, get the wheels going, have to stick their nose in there. There was rumors on the offseason about people questioning whether Porter was physical enough against the run. Just like to see him get in there, break his shoulder pads in, see that attitude of Jalen Ramsey come out. And then on the receiving core, just see the guys step up. I think that there's a little fight in there for trying to figure out who are going to be those last 2 or 3 receivers. And we saw some guys having some nice games last week. But in this game, there's so many questions about how the game will take place as far as who is going to play, what are they going to do. I'm expecting for how preseason is, they're going to go back to first game kind of mentality. Things are going to get very vanilla. Guys are going to, stay in bounds, just get upfield, hold on to the ball kind of mindset. And as we know, each and every team across the league, their biggest desire is to get out of this game without sustaining another injury.
And the Steelers, outside of Will Howard, have kind of been okay in that avoiding the injury bug. And if something happens tomorrow, do not blame me for putting that into the open, okay? Everyone listening, everyone watching, please. Wayne, how do I put this? How do I want to say this? Because Mike Tomlin, I do want to clarify, Mike Tomlin, he didn't say that Ramsey's playing, Slay is playing. He just said that Watt, Rodgers, Metcalf, and Hayward won't be playing. So that opens the door for everyone else on the roster. But I do just want to clarify and let everyone know that that doesn't mean necessarily that we will see. I do think we should see those guys. And for me, in this game, I want to see some dogs. I want to see some bark. I know it's a preseason game. It doesn't really matter. Those guys still trying to make the team. I'd love to see a little bit more juice and energy, because if not, it goes back to, one person even in the comments section just now, do you think joint practices are more beneficial than the preseason games? Now, with joint practices, the media can go, but you can't really tape it. You can't really say what happens. You just can watch and see the practices. I don't know what to make of that question. It's a good question because, and we've said this already, we haven't seen a ton, and you keep using the word vanilla. It's been very vanilla. Could a joint practice be less vanilla than what we're seeing out of these current preseason games, Wayne?
Well, the one thing you do get in a joint practice is you do get the number one receiver against the number one corner. You do get those individual battles. You might not get as far as the plays go, but you do get to be able to go out, and the guy across you is the line from you is the guy that would be there if it was Sunday at 1:00, more than you do in these preseason games.
But let me ask you this. Let me ask you this then, Wayne. With that in mind, how do you compare a one-on-one battle between a number one cornerback and a number one receiver in a joint practice versus what you get in a game? Can you compare the two? Because for me, there's gamers who maybe don't have that switch turned on exactly right in practice, but come game time, they're just a different animal.
Well, I'm saying it from the point of view that by the time the game comes around, just like we saw last week with the Steelers and the Bucks, then the things you would have seen, the battles you saw in practice, none of those guys were even in that game for that to even try to manifest. A lot of times, especially in the preseason, the game at some point, and why you might want a Ramsey, a Slay, a Porter Jr. out there, since they're a new combination of corners. You might want to get out. You want to get different calls. You want to get certain looks on tape going into the next week. So those guys haven't been out there as much as we talk about how good they've been practicing. But you do kind of want to go through a little bit of just the different combinations in the huddle. It's kind of like when we watch special teams, making sure the right personnel is in on a certain call. So if anything, if those guys are in the game, some of that will be that, but it'd be so brief. You make sure you catch the first 7-8 minutes because if you're waiting on Jalen Ramsey to play a half of football, that's not going to happen tomorrow night.
And it's smart of Mike Tomlin to be more on the cautious side with some of these guys because the Steelers just don't have that range of flexibility. If Aaron Rodgers gets injured, which is a possibility, unfortunately, at his age, the physicality of the NFL, it could have, you just never know. Mason Rudolph is there, and he understands the offense, and he's familiar with the system. So from that perspective, I don't worry as much. But for other positions, let's say Cameron Hayward goes down. Well, that's not a guy you want injured. Let's say Jalen Ramsey goes down. That's not a guy you want injured. So taking the cautious route here in the preseason against a team like Carolina, there could be some wet weather Thursday night. It makes sense to me. Wayne, at this point, we've got about 10 minutes left on the show tonight. And if you're watching and you're commenting, we love you. We appreciate you here on the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. It's new, so we're having fun with this. What are your biggest question marks left for the Steelers before the season kicks off? The offensive line, can we dive into that a little bit more and talk about the guys that you want to see get dirty and win the trench battles? Because that's really a big point for the Steelers team. Can they win the trenches to push the line forward?
I think we have the 5 guys we want. I think, as you said, Mike Tomlin is being cautious because the talent is not, they don't have enough talent offensively for anyone to get hurt for this team. And that's why I said earlier, this team is going to have that lucky charm as far as the guys that we're counting on are going to have to be out on the field. And that is definitely when you talk about the offensive line, McCormick, Jones, Fontenot, those guys. The thing with Project Jones, we moved him from right to left. Has he really faced an opponent to get tested, to get his beak wet enough where you feel secure? Not in my opinion. I think the interior of the offensive line will be fine. But I think with Project Jones and Fontenot, what you get with those guys, as I said, one of the athletic ability for a tackle of your quarterback helps you out because he can step up. Or if they get a little jersey when they're going around the corner, he can pull out. These guys, when you get these pocket, and that's what Aaron Rodgers now is, a pocket quarterback, you're going to have to be able to have that timing and understanding where he is with the ball. So if anything, questioning on the offensive line, it's just those guys because they're new to the spots of where they are. Defensively, we saw the defensive. What I loved last week about the defensive front, I saw energy. I saw penetration. We were talking about that. I saw Harmon pushing the pocket, Benton. I saw those guys showing some more explosiveness. The key for me over there is more of who's going to be that outside linebacker. We can't be in a situation that if TJ or Highsmith leave for a quarter, that we're all panic. And that's how it seemed last year. We were all,
Yeah, well, it's going to
so
happen again. It's inevitable. Tell me something inevitable. It's that right there, Wayne. No doubt about it.
And it's like, the Steelers always had, that's what I said earlier, they always had that guy that could come in. I mean, and I don't like to go back to the old days, but when I was there, you had a guy like a Mike Vrabel was the backup. Joey Port, when he was the backup at first when he got there behind Carlos Emmons and Gilden, Clark Hagan was there as well. Guys that stepped up, that when their opportunity came, the window opened, they became starters. And that's what I'm looking for on the defensive side. Which one of these outside linebackers are going to step up and solidify within me that we have that luxury of one of the two starters leaving for a player or two, or if they have to miss a game, I'm not sitting there like, oh, the defense is in trouble.
It's certainly nice to reflect on those Steelers teams that you were a part of with those Steelers defenses. You say step up. This is definitely a Steelers team with a lot of step-up opportunities. Who is going to step up and crack open that window and step through the window and make the plays and earn the trust of not just your teammates, but the fan base? I feel like this Steelers team has a lot of prove-it opportunities. Who's going to prove that they're the guy to make the play? That is a big question for me. We have Jim commenting this. No one knows the offensive line better than Wayne. And so this is a perfect question for Wayne. 15 years in the NFL on that offensive line across 4 teams. Wayne, Jim is asking he's saying the O-line has been looking better in pass protection than run blocking this preseason. Do you agree with Jim there, Wayne?
Yes, I definitely do. I think that when you watch the game, the pass pro has been solid, not just with the O-line, the backs, they're picking up the blitz very well. And that's the thing we talked about. I think they're a better pass pro team than they are a run blocking team. But the key, as we have talked, that rookie quarterback, that 40-year-old quarterback, they need a lot of situations where it's 3rd and 2, 2nd and 4, and the Steelers running game to be balanced. They have to balance it running the ball, and that's why me and you both, Tyler, have talked about haven't seen enough of that from this offense, and we haven't seen enough opportunities. The couple of runs they had last week with Caleb Johnson was once the second unit got in there. So I didn't even get to see the first unit run block. So that's going to be key in those first couple of games for the Steelers.
It'll be interesting to see who plays in the Steelers' final preseason game tomorrow night, Thursday, 7 Eastern in Charlotte. It's the Steelers and the Panthers on the NFL Network. A reminder, you can listen to the audio of tonight's show on the Locked On Steelers podcast feed, wherever and however you podcast. Also, be sure to like and subscribe either on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on YouTube if you're watching us here either live or recorded. If you haven't already, please do. We appreciate all you who commented tonight and participated in the show. We're having fun with this, and we love when you guys engage. So that'll do it for this midweek edition of the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. For Wayne Gandy, I'm Tyler Feldman saying good night, and here we go. We'll see you again tomorrow night right after the game.